Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to The Scope. And now, here are your hosts, Jared, Adam, and Shane.
Hey everybody, welcome. It is episode 319 of The Scope. We are back. 6 months? Has it been that long?
It was a holiday show, so not quite six, but 5.
5 months. The last time we spoke, we were in the midst of holly and mistletoe and seasonally correct foods, Adam.
We had not yet received a lot of the snow we would receive for the rest of the winter.
Yes.
That's kind of sad.
Yeah, I mean, we've only got 5 months to cover, and we're always very brief in what happens. So let's tick
Start
it off.
from the beginning. Football first. All right.
Football first. Vikings poop their pants. Commanders poop their pants. Then we had a massive winter of snow. It wasn't particularly cold, but a lot of snow.
Mm-hmm. We hit number 3 snowiest of winter. On record.
Let's say what do we say? 90 plus inches, which is a lot.
That's a lot.
It's a lot of snow, and
What's
it just
that
kept
in centimeters for our international audience?
I don't know, but
all right.
Let's just say it's a lot.
It's a lot. We'll go with that.
What else do we got? I went on a vacation to Costa Rica.
No urinary issues this time.
No urinary issues. But
you were the only one to get sick on your trip, right?
Right. Yeah. So like a couple days before we were going to leave, I started getting a little bit of an itchy throat. You know me, I brought a shit ton of COVID tests. I COVID tested every day I was there. Initially, I thought it was just like allergies because where we were at, there was a lot of like pollen and leaves falling, but it wasn't something that was a deal breaker. But by the time I got back a couple days later, I was really sick. Like I ended up missing almost the entire week of work, and it just was like a sinus infection. It actually held on for like 3 weeks. I probably just got over it about a week ago, but had a great vacation. That's that. So Adam, what about you? What did you do in 5 months?
4
or 5 months.
Go back through my journal here.
Yep. And, open it up. Your dream journal too.
We went to Phoenix for a week in February, the week right after the Super Bowl, which was there. We actually flew in the day after the Super Bowl, and it was crazy there. The line to get
just
into
confetti in the streets.
Well, they didn't win, so no. But the telephone poles were still greased up for some reason. The line to get into the Delta Lounge, I heard, was a 4-hour wait. Now, I don't know, like logistically, why you're at the airport that early,
right?
But you do get free drinks at the Delta Lounge, so I guess if
you're there that early to get into the Delta Lounge, obviously.
Probably a lot of Philly fans would be my guess, waiting for that.
Yeah, but we got there. I'm noticing that I have my headphone cord is starting to fray. It was cold there. That was the thing. So it was like the coldest week of the winter.
How cold is it? Are we saying
like 50s?
Oh my gosh!
It's still 20 degrees colder than it's supposed to be.
So you were in shorts, and everybody else that lived there were in parkas, and you're like, "Hey, what's the deal? What's wrong with you people?"
Well, remember it's a dry heat, so it's also a dry cold. So no, I was not in shorts. I was miserable. Oh, also then we went orange picking, and I got a terrible allergic reaction on my like on the sides of my abdomen and on my legs, and I guess it's from the leaves on an orange tree.
You're rubbing up against those trees?
I mean, on accident, but I might be allergic to that. Like I had to go to urgent care. It was yeah, it sucked. But then I was on steroids the rest of the trip, so that was cool.
Nice.
So you were lifting cars and you were feeling no pain. Uh-oh.
Adam, your cord may have bit the dust. We can't hear you.
You just cut out there, Adam.
No, that was me pressing this button.
Perfect.
It's the mute button, I guess, is what it's
well,
called.
it's a well-oiled machine. What else did you? I've been to Phoenix too. Did you go to any of the regional attractions?
We went to the zoo.
To the zoo.
With my child who doesn't particularly like anything outside.
Like father, like son.
Uh-huh. We did that. We went to the what's it called? Gardens. That's right by the zoo. I can't remember anyway, something gardens. That was
Cacti Gardens?
No, but yeah, basically.
Yeah, it's like you're back, Adam.
Feels like it. We got to go out on since we were visiting Mandy's parents, so we went out on date nights. A couple nights that we were there, so that was nice to be able to do. It was mostly just a low key. Let's visit the grandparents because we haven't seen them, and they.
Did the grandparents go on the date night with you? So was it a double date night?
Like a chaperone scenario?
Or? We left Will at the house, yeah.
Smart. Well, he doesn't like to go outside, so he's probably pretty safe.
Yeah. And then we went We went hiking. We went up a hole in the rock, which is like a real small mountain from a kid's perspective. So that was cool. It's like a mountain. It's like a rock formation with a giant hole at the top of it. So it's kind of neat.
Nice.
So, well, you're really selling it.
We make him do outside stuff even if he hates it.
Cool.
Wow. Well, there we go.
I can say on my Phoenix trip, which was the last trip I was on pre-COVID, I went to none of those attractions.
What did you go do, Jared?
So our big ones were the Grand Canyon. That was
sure. I mean, that's the logical thing.
Yeah. And then we also went to the Taliesin West campus, Frank Lloyd Wright.
Have you been to any of these places, Adam?
We drove. Well, in my previous outings to Phoenix, I've been by the Grand Canyon.
Okay.
Not exactly adjacent, but
and I think we did go to the Frank Lloyd Wright building.
It's beautiful, technically in Scottsdale, but that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, all of Phoenix is a weird city. That's
it's a big sprawling suburban thing. You know how it is.
Like we have Brooklyn Park and Maple Grove. You know how like there's no break in those. It's basically the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
All of this is getting cut, by the way.
Yeah, we're just going to take this right out.
The last time
I had to get back our sea legs.
The last time I had been to Phoenix before this.
Let's go through every Phoenix trip.
I went there to play.
I just got the one to go through. So.
X-Wing.
Oh yeah,
so that's the winner story right there.
Yeah, and it was a store championship, and I made the second day. I made the cut top 16.
It's amazing. In cannon chips. That's what you gotta use. That's my tip.
I don't know. The Hawk 290 is in the game and legal, and it is definitely not canon. That is the Kyle Katarn, ship from whatever Jedi Outcast.
Force.
Sure.
Not Force Unleashed, but yes. Yeah. Dark Forces. Is that what that?
Dark Forces. Yes. Yep. Yes.
See, I know something or a thing or two, and that's appropriate because we actually have a Star Wars information later on in the show. Well,
it's a good thing that people wait for us to disseminate what happened in the Star Wars universe a month ago.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely key. So, Adam, you went to Arizona. I feel like Jared and I, we got to get the show moving, but we really want to talk about what we did last weekend, which was we participated in a local curling tournament. We were invited to represent the city.
An invitational?
I would say it was an invitational.
It literally is the Twin Cities Invitational.
Right, that's the name of it. So there's that sounds just like curling right there.
Yeah.
Here we go. Yep, that's what we would say. Yep. So there are 5 curling clubs in the Twin Cities area, Adam, and each club was allowed to bring their 2 best teams. And because we have the person that runs the Richfield curling, which is Richfield? It's not really even a club, is it, Jared?
It's officially a club. That's why we were invited.
Okay,
we were the 6th club this year.
So we were one of the 2 teams representing the Richfield Curling Club.
Were you the A team or the B team?
I don't know.
That's a good
It doesn't
question.
matter. We were all the Z team.
Right.
In the end.
Okay.
Yes. So we kind of go into the disadvantage, and I would say that, out of all of the teams in the Richfield curling club, I mean, our team definitely is the most. We've been there every year. We take it seriously, but it is nothing compared to some of these other club teams. Jared, how many times have we curled in our lives? 100. Let's just say 120 times we've curled.
Sure.
These teams, they have people that curl 2 or 3 or 4 times a week.
Yeah. They're curling 100 times, 120 times a year at least.
Yeah. And they're curling on real curling ice, compared to the ice that we're on, which is just treated hockey ice.
And they've been curling for at least a decade, some since they were 5 years old.
Right. We talked to some people, and they moved from out of state to Minnesota because Minnesota had a more robust curling scene. That's how serious they were. So
are they retired and this is what they do, or this is they're
no, there's a lot of young people there, actually.
It was a pretty good mix, though. There were a lot of older, I don't know if I would say retirement age, but definitely people in their 40s, 50s, maybe 60s, early 60s. But then there were definitely some younger people just in their 20s.
Yeah. And so these 2 Richfield clubs come in who, the other Richfield teams, rather, the other team, they have some people on that team that curl on regular ice, so they had a little bit more experience. On our team,
I think they actually curl on that club, the
Do they?
Four Seasons Curling Club in Blaine. I think that's their normal.
That's their home base. Well, our team has a total of 4 times on regular curling ice, which is different. I mean, it is different. It's pure. If you make slight adjustments, you can see it on the ice how the stone goes. It is instantaneous compared to the Richfield ice. You can be a lot less precise, and weird crap is going to happen all the time. So, I mean, I think that we knew that it was going to be a learning experience, but it ended, and it was. But we also
I knew exactly what I was getting into.
Did you? Sure. I mean, I figured with the amount of times we've curled, we could probably, put up some points on some people, a few times during a match. And it ended up being, if we could score a point against a team, that was a success, a single point. It's like a 10th grade basketball team playing against a professional, NBA team. You score 2 baskets and you're pretty happy about it. It was insane. Our the first team that we drew, one of the people on the team had just gotten back from competing in nationals. I mean, they're serious. The best,
and they would ultimately be playing. They would play for the championship that weekend.
Right.
So.
And the other team that they were playing against had a guy who we were told was literally a hair away from making the Olympics. And that team played the other Richfield team and destroyed them as well. So it was eye-opening, and people were perfect. Most of the teams were nice, but I'm sure they were thinking, what are these jokers even doing here? Because it was just such a power imbalance. And I was the worst of the bunch. I was so bad, and I was so frustrated. And you throw 16 stones a game, and we played 4 matches, and I probably had 5 shots that I was happy with, and I had 1 shot where I got us points. Literally 1 shot out of everything.
Now, to be fair, you throw 16 stones in a normal 8N game, but however, the gentleman's rules are if you are
that's true.
badly down at 4 or 5 ends, you should concede.
Yep.
Which we did.
Most matches win about 2 hours, or a little under 2 hours. Our first 3 matches, we didn't make it past 40 minutes.
No, that's not true. We played almost an hour at least every time, sometimes over. And we generally, at all of them, we would play a couple ends afterwards.
Right.
That didn't count, just sort of because, hey, it's free curling. You don't, that costs money until you take advantage of it when you can.
Yeah, Adam, when people do this as much as all our competitors did, they can tell when they're released, because you time your release, right? You slide out and if it took me 3 seconds to get out and release the stone, we know how far it's going to go. And the people that are sweeping can look down at that stone and tell where it's going to go, what the expectation is.
Well, they're also timing it so they know how fast it's
and they're timing it. So it's like we are at a disadvantage because you can't really do that on hockey arena ice. It's because it's so inconsistent. If there's a ridge or, figure skating the day before, it's not smooth. So, we're trying to feel it. We're trying to guess. And you mix that guessing with the ice being so sensitive to every single thing you do. And it has the possibility to be chaos and a rough go. And it was. But it still was a lot of fun. I mean, there's no doubt about it. It was a lot of fun.
So what's the deal? Like, what's your guys' plan to get to compete with these guys?
So we're never going to actually compete with them, but I think we can get to a higher plane of curling, as it were. There's we've talked a lot, and I've been talking Angela's ears off about this too, about like what the next phase is for our game. What are the next things we need to integrate into how we play? So we've got some ideas on what to do there, and I think Shane, sounds like you disagree with me, but I think there are ways we can implement that even in our arena play. I think opportunities to do that.
I agree with you.
I just think we have to couch our expectations a bit as far as like how much of effect it's going to have on
right. But you just have to do it to get in practice. So
you just got to get the reps in so that once you do have those opportunities to play on real ice, you're ready to go.
So like the way they time the professional curlers time things, we need to be doing that, even if it doesn't even make sense in hockey ice, just because.
It does make sense though. It's still time from the hack to the hog line. It's a fixed distance, and so you can, based on how much time it takes for the stone to travel that, you can extrapolate out roughly where it's going to end up on the ice. And so you know early on if it's going to be too heavy or if you need to start sweeping it to get it going or whatever.
Yeah.
Another thing is we need to integrate in. There's sort of a number scale on the sheet as far as like how far a distance is. That you want to hit. So there's like, if you want a guard, it's like a 2. If you want a T-line, it's like a 7. If you want it to go through the house to where the hack is, it's like a 10. These may not be the right numbers, but you get the idea. It's like the higher the number, the farther the distance. And so we need to sort of incorporate that into our shot calling. So we are just calling out the appropriate delivery weight. Whether or not we can actually match that request is another story, but I mean, for me personally, I didn't find that the real curling ice was that much of an adjustment. But that's me. That's my personal experience.
It was definitely harder for me. And the thing is, like on the Richfield ice, if you wanted to make something curl to the left, some days you just can't do that. You can't do it. Whereas on real ice, you can make that happen. Now it may not be, the same if you want it to curl to the right. But generally speaking, you can get the stone to do what you want it to do, within reason. Some days on the Richfield ice, you'll throw a stone and it literally will S-curve. It will go back and forth and back again. Yeah. And we've had success where we saw that happening and you just throw that shot and you make it happen. You'll never see that on real curling. That's something that will never, ever happen.
There's a natural bias to the arena already. Like that's like the macro thing you're dealing with, where everything's sort of, depending on where you are, it's going to like slide to the middle. So depending on which side of the arena you're on, it's going to have a bias one way or the other. But then there's sort of the micro night to night variances, which is how did the Zamboni perform? What kind of garbage did it leave behind? It's just every day is a new challenge. So some days you get really good ice where you can actually get a little bit of curl either direction, and that's glorious. But most times you don't.
It's great. And I think the final thing that we probably need to do is like take all of your individual roles a little bit more seriously, in the sense that like sweepers actually have more responsibility than just sweeping when someone tells them to sweep, right?
Yeah.
Like
they need to be engaged from the moment of delivery.
Yeah, like sweepers will determine certain logistics of what the stone is doing better than people sitting at the very ends telling them when to sweep. So that's something that we're going to have to work on. And again, it's like Jared said, it's even if you're on this ice that is inconsistent and crazy, just doing it and bringing that into your practice is going to make a world of difference. So we'll see. We still had a great time. They had some other fun games that we did there, and we were competitive in that. And it just was kind of fun to see high level players, because, normally when you're playing rec sports, like you're never going to, if you're playing flag football, you're not going to bump into Kirk Cousins. I mean, in this case, we're playing, a sport where we're seeing people that literally are competing on some of the highest levels, and it's amazing how good they are. It's something, I don't know if it's something I would ever aspire to, but it certainly makes me want to up my game in the sense like I want to be able to, every once in a while put a point on these guys if I were to play them.
Yeah, I mean, we're never going to get to that level, but we could aspire to, like, the third team we played on Saturday, who played out of St. Paul Curling Club. They were older guys, definitely more recreational, but they've been playing for a decade plus.
Yeah.
So they're good, but they were much more casual. They were cordial. They were complimentary to us. I think some people had the expectations that we were going to be absolute like bumpkins coming in there and didn't even know which way to move the stone. And they were like, right. Oh, you have all the shots. And all you're missing is the repetition, the time put into it to get better and be consistent.
Yep.
So,
and they could tell, some of the teams could definitely tell that, there was some frustration on our side. And the one guy said to me, which was really true, he goes, you guys are out there and you're missing your shots. And he goes, I know you want to win. He goes, but how do you think it would feel for us if you guys actually beat us? He's like, everybody here has been doing this for years and they're all in these clubs. So, you are doing as well as what you should expect to do given your situation. And he's right. It's like, none of us ever expected to win. I think that we maybe thought we might be able to sneak a few more points. And obviously that didn't happen, but they really are correct when they say like, these guys should be kicking the crap out of us. And
yeah, who was that, by the way?
That was I think that was the third team. One of the players on the third team was talking to us. But even like I think there were some matches like where we had some ends where we might have kept it kind of close. Like there was a couple times where I felt like we were in it.
Well, we definitely had opportunities.
Yeah, it's just sometimes it just doesn't go your way. Boy, this could be the entire curling podcast right now. Let's close out the show. But yeah. Adam, it was a good time, and we will definitely keep everyone posted about our curling adventures. And next season starts in just a few weeks, so we'll get to it then.
Hell yeah!
All right, summer curling. That sounds crazy.
Yeah, now that's something else we learned. There's a number of curling clubs that are not open all year round. So for a lot of those curlers, they might be done for the season. Like they'll go in May. That's the end of the season, and they won't start curling until October. So yeah,
this is sort of like the capper. This is like essentially the end of the curling season. Right. There's of the 5 dedicated curling facilities, 2 of them are open over the summer. Yeah, the one we played at in Blaine, and then Chaska, I believe.
Yeah,
in the Twin Cities. That could be different.
Eaters.
The cake eaters, exactly.
Well, what do we got going on for the rest of episode 319, guys? We went
Not
down
much.
the nerd.
Should we wrap it up?
That's done. We'll be done. We've got. If Jared would have had his way, this show would be under an hour. That's all I'm going to say. But
I'm tired.
We're not even close. We're going to be talking about the state of the union of the Star Wars universe. A few weeks ago, Star Wars Celebration hit, and a lot of information came out. We've got a ton of new shows for the upcoming year and reviews of shows that have just completed. So we've got a lot to talk about. Adam's going to be bringing his magic with coming soon, and Jared and I will pepper in some fun and interesting commentary and sound effects. And generally speaking, we'll just put together a great comeback show for the Scope and its Scope listeners. So let's take a quick break.
I'm feeling the pressure a little bit.
We'll take a quick break. We'll be back with more of 319 and your Scope program right after this.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time of the program where I say, hey, we're back, and that means it's time to panhandle a little bit. Do you like the show? Do you want it to continue? It may or may not continue depending on your wishes, but if you'd like to push us one way or another, you can support us directly by becoming a patron over at patreon.com/thescopeshow. You can pledge as little as $1 per episode. I'll hold you to that. $1. That's all I'm going to ask. If you want to do more, you can. But $1 is good enough. It helps us pay for bandwidth. It helps us pay for probably our podcasting software because that's the capabilities we need are no longer free. We just discovered that today, so gotta pay for that. Oh boy. I tell you, this game, been in it a long time. A lot of things have come and gone, but we're still here. And that's because of patrons like you. So sign up, patreon.com/The Scope Show for all that information. Get over there now. Go on, we'll wait. Head on over. All right, you know what to do.
Alrighty, everybody, episode 319 of The Scope, and you can tell by that music that we're getting into Star Wars.
It's a perfect segue.
Jared,
you know what? Now that we post these to YouTube, I can't use like real sounds anymore because I'll just get a copyright strike.
You can't throw in like a Star Wars sound effect.
Maybe I can probably do a sound effect, but
yeah, see if you could pull something up today. We're going to do something that's a little bit further down the nerdy rabbit hole. We're going to do the Scope Star Wars State of the Union. As I teased earlier in the show, a lot of Star Wars information came out at Star Wars Celebration 2023. That was in, there we go. Was that in LA? I don't know where it was at.
It was in London this year.
It was in London. I was so close. My geography.
Very close.
Good day, mate. Hello, Vader.
Right.
And that's
so I was surprised when it started.
That's Australian, by the way.
When it started on the Friday it started, I was surprised when I took my lunch break and I was like, "Oh, the live stream's already going." What?
Because, Jared, there's an 8-hour time difference. That's how that works, sir.
Yes, my master.
We're not going to get a infringement with that.
These are on freesound.org, so they're not. They're approximations of Star Wars.
I think this is so appropriate for our show. I can't even tell you. So we had Star Wars Celebration. We had the conclusion of the season 3 of The Mandalorian, and like I said, a bunch of information. I'm going to throw this out to you two first. Do we want to talk about TV or movies first? What do you think?
I mean, let's get the movies out of the way. There's not a lot to talk about, honestly.
All right. So take this with a grain of salt because we've had other Star Wars movie announcements year after year, and I don't think any of those movies have ever been released, and a lot of them are just out the window. But we have 3 new movies announced this time around. The first is a yet-to-be-named Star Wars movie directed by... Is it James Mangold that will be based thousands of years back in time and centers on the first Jedi? So
is it? Am I reading this right? James Mangold?
That's what I got.
You know who he is, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So convincing. Yeah. He only directed the new Indiana Jones movie that's coming out. He directed Logan.
People love Logan.
Yeah.
They love that movie. Yeah. We'll just quickly go around the room. Are you interested in the origin of the Force story, Adam?
Yeah. You think it'll be a Baby Yoda? Probably, right?
Well, I mean that's the only thing that's working.
Depends on how much sway the producers have.
Right. Jared, what do you say? Is this a proper Star Wars lore to mine?
I'm curious, but I'm mostly curious because I think in the hands of James Mangold, I think it's got potential.
Right.
I don't know. I mean, it's like something about it. The origins of the Force without George Lucas being involved seems a little weird.
Right.
I think as an adult, the Force is the most boring part of Star Wars to me.
Yeah, you're not wrong, but it is sort of important.
I don't know what you guys think, but like going back prequel or mega prequel, it's to me that stuff does not interest me as much. But since they sort of boofed the future, I mean, maybe you have to go back 10,000 years, so you can figure some stuff out.
Yeah.
So we're not sure about this, but I mean, the pedigree is good. It could be interesting.
Did you guys watch Rebels?
Yes.
So I mean, there's a lot of like first and early Jedi stuff in that.
Yeah.
I think that was the part that I was the least interested in.
Yeah, it gets
So
to be very
saying
mystical.
You're dubious. I mean, you could argue that the early stuff that sort of planted the seeds that were explored a lot in this season of Mandalorian was also problematic. So I don't know. Yeah.
Well, listen to this, guys. The second movie.
Okay. Give it to me.
We'll take all of the Star Wars Disney shows that have been made and connect them to one another through a feature film that Dave Filoni, who is one of the producers behind pretty much all of the Star Wars TV shows, with the exception of Andor. This also has not been given a name. So this essentially, for people that want to know, is filling in the space between Return of the Jedi and the sequel trilogy, the Rey trilogy. I'm assuming this will feature Grand Admiral Thrawn, who is going to be a key player in the Ahsoka show, who is a very beloved Star Wars character through the novels and comics that is being made officially part of the canon. I mean, he first filled that role in Rebels, so people are very, very excited about that.
And they got the actor who did the voice to play him in live action, so that's cool.
I mean, I feel like what this is the attempt to really legitimize what happened in the sequel trilogy, and so this is going to kind of set things up and explain Palpatine's return a little bit more clearly and succinctly, and Snoke, all that stuff. We'll go around the room again. Jared, are you excited about this film?
I am excited because overall I like Rebels. I like the characters. However, I am concerned that the audience isn't there for it because, again, some of this stuff is the problem with, and we'll talk about it later, the Mandalorian Season 3. It's very heavy on lore. It's very heavy on kind of bringing forth into live action characters that were created for animation that most people haven't seen before. And I'm not sure that they're yet doing a good job of sort of portraying these characters in a way that works for both audiences, those that know the characters and those that are just meeting them for the first time. So maybe I'll feel differently once Ahsoka is done and anything else that feeds into that movie has gotten completed. But for right now, I'm a little bit concerned that maybe Dave Filoni's a little bit high on his own supply as you were, maybe. So I'm cautious.
Adam?
Yeah, I think I agree. I'm curious to know how popular Clone Wars and Rebels and Bad Batch are or were.
Well, Disney Plus lost like 4 million subscribers in the last year, so maybe not that great.
Yeah. Right, but I mean, I don't know. You can attribute that to lots of stuff. But yes, I'm curious, right? We haven't had a Star Wars movie since right before the pandemic, and I don't think it was a great showing. And then since then we've had ups and downs with TV shows and movies being announced and then being thrown away.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think I don't care anymore about the Palpatine mystery. I would just kind of be more interested in the other things, but maybe that's just too central or too elephant in the roomy to not focus on. I'd forgotten the whole thread in The Mandalorian with the clones until the last episode, I guess, the next last episode of the season.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, right. Clones. Okay. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I don't know that I need more of that. I like Star Wars. I like the shell around all this stuff. I liked all of Dave Filoni's stuff, minus Book of Boba Fett, I guess. But I don't know. We'll see. Yeah. I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful the Ahsoka show is good. I'm hopeful that this all pays off. I'm hopeful that we get to see Ezra, right? I guess we kind of half confirmed that, right?
Yeah.
Filoni has written all of the scripts for Ahsoka, so I guess we'll talk about Ahsoka later.
Yeah.
So let me ask you guys what you think of this thought that I just had.
Uh-oh.
It feels like Star Wars has sort of done the flip of what the MCU did. Like the MCU kind of laid all this groundwork through, movies, sort of slowly built the mythology, and then kind of brought it together, in a big, culmination. But then that sort of spun out to a bunch of different TV shows, some connected, some not. Whereas with Star Wars, at least with this aspect, it's like they built this whole world through TV, and then now they're going to bring it to movies in one culminating film. I don't necessarily know if that's the right way to go, right? Like,
well, they got to try something, because what they've been doing, it doesn't necessarily work.
Yeah, I
think you could argue that the MCU approach isn't working anymore either.
Yeah.
So,
well, if you want to know the truth, and this is probably a bigger topic, but I think it's Disney Plus. Disney Plus is the culprit that sort of broke the system, because they needed to have so much content, and that amount of content waters everything down, and not everything is going to feel like it slots in and fits in as well as it could. And then you have the pandemic that also pops into there, and it literally changed the way people see movies. It's just the world changed so much, and I don't know. I mean, I think Star Wars does not feel as special. MCU does not feel as special. And
I think that
and you've got to deal with that.
Iger has said that they're going to slow down productions on some of these things.
Yeah.
I think he sort of agrees that there was too much and too frequent, and it doesn't feel special anymore. There's the whole ever mighty shareholders you've got to satisfy, and so you need to have a certain cadence of content coming out to your service, and so that's sort of dictates some of these schedules. But creatively speaking, I think we could probably deal with a little bit more air in between things. Yeah.
When you have this much, you have these properties that they spent so much money on, they want return. But it's interesting, like, by getting that return, you're actually watering down the content, and eventually people just get tired of it. I mean,
but there's an argument to be made that if everything had delivered excellent quality, that there would be no softness in the market. And
maybe.
Maybe you could argue that maybe people are just not tuning into things that are really good, like Andor. And you could also say that there's too much production happening, and so these things don't have time to actually be developed to be very good.
Right.
It's just a matter of we have a date on the calendar we need to hit, and doesn't matter necessarily. It's got to be just good enough to meet the bar. But I think if you had all of this content and all of it was just home runs across the board, this is a different conversation.
A slightly different conversation. Yeah. Adam, what were you going to say?
Well, I think it's a good point that it's probably impossible. Well, it's impossible for everything to be a home run.
Right.
But I think they're hamstringing themselves with their, the amount, right? I mean, I don't know how many, whatever the dumb name for the weird special effects,
the volume.
The volume. I don't know how many volumes they have, right? But like, I'm not usually a person that's like taken out of a story or annoyed with poor special effects. But Obi-Wan was like, I did not like looking at that show, and I think the show itself was not great, but I think it was worse in a lot of ways because of those limitations. I think you have a lot of Quantumania complaints kind of in the same realm. I don't think, again, that the special effects are what made that a bad movie. But I think, like the first Doctor Strange wasn't a great movie, but it sure looked cool. And
it gave you something different.
Yeah.
I like Obi-Wan for the most part. But I do think that it did feel small and confined, where you would think Obi-Wan Kenobi could justify a little bit broader scope or something, or at least a bigger visual. And I think there's a reason that Andor didn't use the volume. They went to real locations, and I think it was a better production for it. I think there's a right time and a place for the volume, and I think they definitely leaned too much into it early on. And part of it might have been just pandemic productions. It's easier to control. Fine. and it's cheaper. But I think they've hopefully learned that it's not the panacea that they think it is. It's like, it's good for a lot of things. It's not great for everything. Like, it's great for spaceship stuff where you're getting that immersive interactive lighting. Everything looks great on that. But, sometimes you just need to go outside. That's okay.
The thing about Star Wars is that, it feels like a real lived-in place, whether it be the designs of the ships or whatever, but, them being in something where it does not feel they're just surrounded by fake walls and, we got a foam boulder here that you can lean against, so we know that that's real.
It's a marvel of technology, but ultimately it still looks like you're in a very high quality video game.
Right. Yep.
Because that's what you are. It's a video game. It's the Unreal Engine. It's a real video game. So
there we go. So the last movie of the three is...
we haven't even talked about all the movies yet. We're off track.
I think this is interesting. This is Daisy Ridley, who played Rey in the sequel trilogy, will be appearing in a new film, and I'm actually hearing that it could be 3 films following the Rise of Skywalkers that will focus on the Jedi Order's rehabilitation. So for me, of the 3, this one is maybe the most intriguing just because... it's not just the Jedi's rehabilitation; it is the sequel trilogy's rehabilitation. Jared and I have talked about this many, many times. The fact that they did not have really any sort of plan, and how that sequel trilogy fell apart between episodes, the second and third portions of that, and frankly, how I think the last episode was disappointing. At best, it was disappointing. So.
You'll never convince me that J.J. Abrams intended that third film to be what ultimately resolved the things he set up in the first one. It just doesn't. If that is the case, then that's crazy. Yeah. But
there's no way, even, and you can say it was cool and brave that Rian Johnson killed, the main antagonist of, the first film. It was shocking and daring, but that was not the intention of J.J. Abrams. There is no way. And
no, it wasn't.
I mean, I think he said as much. So can this new, older Rey change the direction of the Star Wars universe post Rise of Skywalker? Adam?
I mean, I think after Jedi...
That's a lightsaber with an R-E.
Okay, like I was, a little child after Jedi, but like I imagine that after Jedi there was a lot of clamoring for like what happens next. And we never really got it. They got novels that were, afterwards non-canonized and everything.
Almost 10 years later, by the way. I mean, there never really was a legit story, so people were very excited to see.
Yeah. So I mean, I think you can kind of take a lot of those, ideas, right, from those Luke, doing this thing and apply it to Rey and what happens next and everything. It's kind of maybe freeing to be done with all of the Skywalkers, though I guess we're not, because Rey's last name was Skywalker. So I don't know. I'm hopeful that it'll be good, interesting, something different. It feels like it's the first thing to me that feels like it has a chance of kind of breathing on its own, since the other things we're talking about here have all these like pre-established things that they have to kind of like feed into.
Right.
The first Jedi. Okay, there's some Rebels stuff, and obviously being the 30 years in between episodes 6 and 7, you're just fitting a weird puzzle piece into a nearly complete puzzle and kind of doing your own thing around it. This maybe can do its own thing, and maybe it'll be successful because of that.
What do you think, Jared?
Yeah, I think I would sort of agree with that. The idea that it can breathe on its own. It can sort of it doesn't have to feed into a story that line that's happening later. There's nothing ahead of it. It's green fields and blue skies. It can blaze its own trail. Whether it actually will is another whole nother argument. I think I'm interested in this mainly because I think that a lot of people gave Daisy Ridley a lot of shit, and she didn't deserve any of it. She's perfectly fine in these movies, and for whatever reason, she hasn't had a great career since these movies. So I'm happy that she's willing to come back and that she seemed to have a very, very great reception at Celebration. I mean, it's the super fans. Of course, they're not going to hate on anyone who's related to Star Wars, but still,
I'm
it was
shocked
nice
that
to
she's doing this though, right?
Honestly, yeah, I thought she was
Yeah.
completely done. So great for them, whatever it took to get her back. Hopefully it's worth it. And hopefully, like you said, Shane, maybe this turns into a trilogy, but maybe it's an earned trilogy where the first one is successful and tells a good story and it earns a continuation from the audience and from the creatives involved. And it's not just like, let's make another one for more money. What's the next auteur that we want to hire and to do their own thing? None of that. Hopefully you learned your lesson.
Right.
So,
Plan it out. Be smart about it. And
Yep.
just to piggyback on what you said, Daisy Ridley and the character of Rey was the best of the three new heroes, without a doubt. And the most interesting, even with her, flip-flopping origin stories. The one thing that
and that's not it's just, they didn't give the rest of the other characters
right.
a
I mean,
whole
it's
lot to
mostly,
do.
yeah. I mean, mostly,
Especially John Boyega.
Yeah, I mean, his character was totally ill-conceived and should have never been a comedic foil. He should have been a stormtrooper on the run, and he should have been very serious. And then if you want to have a Han Solo type, that's Poe Dameron, and that's that. But maybe the thing I was thinking about, maybe it is finally time to bring in a new threat, a new type of villain, to the Jedi and to this particular universe. It doesn't necessarily have to be Jedis versus Sith. Maybe there's a bigger threat out there. Maybe some of that's been seeded with Thrawn and him being from the Outer Rim, the Outer Worlds, or whatever, the undiscovered country, whatever it is. Maybe that's something that needs to happen with Star Wars. You just have a different threat that you don't really understand, right? It's something that's new. It's different. You're not doing the same old stuff.
And they've been exploring some of that stuff in the novels, for sure.
Yeah.
It's a question of whether or not they're brave enough to spend a movie on that.
Right.
Or if they feel like with this budget, we need to have Jedi and Sith. Because
well, maybe you have Jedi and Sith, and then there's another threat. Who knows?
Yeah. I mean, it's hard, I guess, when, Star Wars started as a commentary on fascism and stuff. Like,
right.
People should be the bad guys, but there's probably other ways of doing that. And maybe it's big enough now where it can be other monsters or whatever.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, this movie, out of all of them, probably has the most pressure on it because it needs to get it right. I think that, it's going to be setting up what is coming next. And like you guys said, you don't want the world ahead to be screwed up because you did another bad story. You did another stupid thing.
Hey, they can always go back to the High Republic. They've got, a few more 100 years that they can keep mining.
Yeah. Let's wait and see. All right. So we've covered movies. Let's just quickly buzz through TV. We've got
quickly. We were going to quickly buzz through the movies and then talk about the TV because there's a lot of TV stuff.
We'll kind of do rapid fire. We'll start with Bad Batch season 3 announced. It's the last season.
Mm-hmm.
I thought the second season of Bad Batch was fine. Stakes were a little bit higher. I mean, it just sort of seems, similar to what like the Clone Wars did and Rebels. It's got a little darker, a little bit more betrayal, and I'm curious, I guess, with how it goes. It's not my favorite show, but it's not my least favorite animated show.
Wow, pretty harsh. I thought season 2 was excellent. Except for maybe a couple episodes that maybe meandered too much. Maybe they could have had some shorter seasons and cut out some of the fluff. But I kind of really enjoyed the story that they were telling, the conflict between, or just showing the rise of the Empire and how it treated clones.
Yeah.
As just property and basically slaves. no regard for them at all.
When you start talking about, or Adam had mentioned like what Star Wars initially represents, this is an allegory for how you treat slaves, how you treat people that are not the same as you, that are considered lower. So I mean, I think that's an interesting view on it.
Yep. So I'm glad it's getting a third season to finish its story, because it's definitely building to something. So that's nice to hear and see.
And it's kind of a cool success, like how they were able to save that extra season or half season or whatever of the end of Clone Wars, and that they were able to kind of keep going. I loved that whatever mini season 8 was. And then I wasn't really that interested in Bad Batch, and season 1 I really liked. I'm not even finished with season 2 when I got to 7 episodes in, and I was like, oh, I'm almost done.
But no, it's 16 episodes.
Yeah, I was like, oh, there's 10 more, and I just kind of hit a wall with it. But I will say,
you can come back to it.
Yes, and you know what?
That's what I did.
There's something to be said for 30-minute shows.
Love it.
That last episode of Mandalorian, it was only 32 minutes. That is
a tight 30. Tight 30.
Yep.
Sometimes you don't need
we've
more
got
than that.
Star Wars Visions Season 2 hit. I was lukewarm on the original Visions. There was some good stuff in there. There was some stuff that wasn't as intriguing. But I appreciate the creativity. And then
I never finished it.
You never finished it?
I never finished season 1. I need to go back and finish that.
Yeah.
And then watch season 2.
Jared, here's what I'm going to say. 15-minute episodes.
I know.
Yeah, even shorter. And speaking of short episodes, Tales of the Jedi Season 2 also announced. So, I mean, that's almost like an extension of the Clone Wars or Bad Batch. It's all in that same sort of time period.
I love the first one because it's just these little stories that sort of fill in some of these gaps and sort of like just give you a little more color as to what's been going on with certain characters or how they got there. You learn about Dooku, like how he became terrible and Dooku.
The strength of all of these animated shows, and to a slightly lesser degree of the Filoni TV shows, is that it does a good job of making the prequel era stuff better just by telling the stories that those prequel stuff should have told or given you more of a hint of. That's just the reality. Like he's making George Lucas's world a better place. And the hope is that he can do that with what he's doing in The Mandalorian as well. Speaking of Dave Filoni, Ahsoka hits in August 23. The trailer showed a glimpse of Thrawn. That was the big reveal.
It's in like 3 months. Jeez.
Yep, okay. It's right around the corner. This will have, I'm assuming, some connection to Mandalorian or a periphery type of thing. I think we're all excited about it. We've talked enough about the movie that's going to be featuring Ahsoka that we don't need to get into that too deeply. Andor season 2 in 2024. I don't know about you guys, but in terms of all the different Star Wars things, to me, Andor is probably top 3 or top 4 of everything that's ever been done in Star Wars. That's how much I liked it.
It's fantastic.
Yeah. It is still the only one that I have watched every week when it came out.
Yeah.
And every other show I've been able to I'll watch 3 in, a week or whatever, but it's the one that just got me the most.
It's another show that has made the world that Lucas created in the prequel trilogy that much more interesting and scary and full of depth. It's just, Andor is fantastic. It is a triumph.
And more people should see it.
Yeah. It's the best thing by far Disney has ever done. And absolutely watch it. I've got notes here for Skeleton Crew with Jude Law. Skeleton Crew is, I don't even really know the story to be. Is it like a bunch of kids traveling the galaxy? And this is also going to tie into the Filoni film, I believe. So this will be that next piece that slots into the Mandalorian universe. We've got
it's like Goonies in space, kind of, isn't it? Isn't that how it's sort of being portrayed?
I think that's what it's going to be.
Yeah,
Jude
it's got a good cast.
Yeah, I've got The Acolyte with Carrie-Anne Moss. This is another prequel, but does not go quite as far back.
This is actually like a High Republic era. Yeah. So it's several hundred years ago.
Yeah, it's not 10,000 years, but you're going to get. Is this going to tie into that prequel comic stuff that's going on right now, Adam?
The High Republic stuff.
Yeah, I think it's mostly I guess it's all novels and comic books at the moment. Star Wars people seem to be into it. I read one of the series, the comic book series. It's like a detective-y sort of thing. I liked it. I couldn't get into it as like a Star Wars thing, but I don't know why. It felt so different, I guess. It just felt like I was reading kind of a weird sci-fi fantasy book that wasn't a Star Wars book, but that doesn't mean it was bad.
Yeah. I'm very curious about the Acolyte. I think it's an interesting time period. It's just like something new and different, maybe. And it's got a great cast. And I'm excited to see Yuna Suotamo play a different Wookiee. He's been our Chewbacca in all of the sequel trilogy. And yeah, he gets to play a Wookiee Jedi, so that's gonna be awesome.
Recently released Young Jedi Adventures. This is an animated show aimed towards younger kids that takes place in the prequel era. Yoda's training a bunch of young whippersnappers, younglings. Adam, I have no intention of watching this, but you are watching it with your son. Give us a quick review.
It's nice. So there is a show on Disney Plus called Spidey and His Amazing Friends, which is Spider-Man, Gwen Spider, Ghost Spider, and Miles Morales, who for some reason they named Spin. And it's rated TVY, which is like all audiences. And like the level of violence when they're like fighting Doc Ock or Rhino and stuff is like incredibly minimal. It's mostly just web, and they're stuck
swinging around.
Yeah. Like I don't think there's punches or kicks or anything. It's like it's very low key. And this Young Jedi Adventures is also TVY, and it follows the exact same model. 2 boy heroes, 1 girl hero. The bad guys are kid versions of a bad guy, and there's incredibly small amount of actual fighting. In some episodes there's no bad guys. It's just like they have to go get a thing, and there's quicksand
make rocks float.
Whatever. Yeah, right. It's so I think there's only 7 episodes. But they're great, and it's the only real Star Wars thing that he's watched, but he likes it a lot. He does not like the name Star Wars. I don't know if it's the war part. I don't think he knows what war is, but so he just calls it Young Jedi Adventures. But he likes the Force stuff, and lightsabers seem cool. But there's one of the Jedis is like, I don't know, some sort of alien, and he kind of is like the same size and whatever age as the other 2 that can speak, but he's more like Baby Yoda in that he kind of just babbles and stuff, and is always trying to eat food because that's funny.
So I read in the latest issue of Star Wars Insider that the plan for this show is by the end of season 4, it's going to end right where the end of Revenge of the Sith ended. So they're actually going to slaughter all of the characters.
Good.
Anakin's going to come in.
Score is 4 stars.
Just for that ending.
I think that's good. That's like how the Harry Potter books got. There was death right around the 4th one. So I think that's great. So Will's 4 right now. So
the audience will grow into
it. Ready for it.
Yeah, he'll be totally ready. Well, I'm glad someone's watching it. I'm glad there's an audience out there for it. Let's wrap this up with a quick wink, talk about Mandalorian season 3. That ended not too long ago. Some might say it's a divisive season of Mandalorian. Some liked it, some didn't. Some felt like it meandered a little bit. I'm looking at Jared right now because he's thought a lot about this. He's in his library. He's written all of those books behind him, things he wrote about Mandalorian season 3.
This is all of my fanfic back here of how I would have done the season if I were in charge.
So, Jared, you're usually pretty forgiving when it comes to Star Wars. Is there anything to be forgiven for the season 3 of Mandalorian?
During the entire run of the season, I believe my stance on the show was it's aggressively fine. Like, it's fine. And at times it was good, and at times it was bad, but overall it was fine. And I've kind of felt like that about all of the seasons, to be honest. I don't know that this was any worse than parts of season 2 or parts of season 1. Like, it is what it is. It's got some stories it wants to tell. It may not tell them all in the most economic way or in the most logical way, but it's going to eventually tell those stories. And you're going to have episodes that maybe feel like filler, and maybe you like them for what they are, and maybe you don't. I don't know. I like the one where they went on the detective quest to get answers as to what was going on with the droids. I thought it was fun. I didn't mind Jack Black and Lizzo. Everyone else seemed to hate it. So I don't know. Star Wars is what it is. And I always say, all Star Wars is good Star Wars. It's just a different level of good, in my opinion. But I do think it was a mistake to start the season to not have the reunion of Din Djarin and Grogu happen in this season. To have it happen in an episode, arguably the best episode, but an episode of Book of Boba Fett was, what are we doing? That was a weird storytelling choice that made no sense, and it would have had way more impact if it had happened at the beginning of season 3. But it is what it is. For the most part, I enjoyed things, and I guess I'm hopeful that maybe they've wrapped up their storytelling about the greater Mandalore quest or whatever, because it's only so interesting. I think they're better as sort of like side characters, not necessarily as the main protagonists.
Well, they have to go on their adventures now, Jared. You heard the armor.
Sure, I guess. And all the cloning stuff is like, okay, you're really, really trying to justify your choices in the third sequel trilogy movie. I get it. It's fine. Whatever. That stuff is not resonating with me nearly as much as some of the other stuff. So,
do you concur with that thought, Adam?
Yeah. I feel like it is a reset, right?
Yeah. The show could be done as far as I could tell. I mean, I know there's going to be another one, but the show ends at a point where you're like, that could be it, and I'd be fine with it.
Totally. And I mean, you could even say, oh, cool, they're going to go off and do adventures together, the dad and his kid.
We don't need to know what they are. We just know they're going to do it.
I was so concerned that the show was going to end, and then it's next season on The Mandalorians. And it's just, it's like, I really felt like when, we saw Bo-Katan in season 2. I was like, oh, this is, and it was Katie Sackhoff playing her. I was like, this is like really nice fan service for people that watched Rebels and Clone Wars. And then this season, and
now she's the main character,
right? And it's like,
which I was fine with, honestly. If you wanted to be like, hey, surprise, she's actually the Mandalorian.
She's the Mandalorian.
I'd be like, all right, cool. But the problem was the show did a bunch of things, and it didn't really like commit to any of them.
Yeah.
Which was like, okay, I just want you to like pick a direction and go there.
Well, it's kind of like how the Book of Boba Fett for 2 episodes turned into The Mandalorian. It's like, this for 3 episodes turned into Bo-Katan. And you're totally right. They're interesting stories and characters, and they don't give any of them enough breathing room. So I am happy that we get a happy ending for the Mandalorians. And I'm sure he'll come back and visit Mandalore, but the idea that he and Grogu are going to go off on some adventures now, and maybe that's just, one more season of them doing cool stuff that'll, sometimes tie into things, sometimes just be cool things. Great.
And please, let's spend the whole season trying to explain how Din is the family name. Please do that.
Yeah, I think this season.
Spoilers.
This season was the season where my wife tapped out.
Yeah.
It was way too lore heavy, way too much to pay attention. It became more than just a cute baby Yoda running around and doing things. And I don't know if that's good or not, but that is what it is. And I'm with Jared. I mean, it was perfectly serviceable, that told a story and expanded the Star Wars universe and answered some interesting questions. And now I'm curious to see where it goes. And we can hope for a reset, but we also thought that, that some of that stuff might happen with the Book of Boba Fett and the second season of Mandalorian, but they sort of waded back into that. So who the hell knows if it's just going to be more of a pure show? I mean, I think that what ends up happening is that you're going to see the Mandalorian and Baby Yoda start to find some of those other threats out there that just literally just tie into the First Order again. I think that's what it's going to be.
Well, I mean, it's like, we know Gideon's other circle of Imperial guys are still around, including Hux, who, is kid. Is,
and who knows? Gideon could still be alive. He could have been a clone.
I mean, he should be if that was, whatever
the speculation that it was clone Gideon who got killed. Okay.
They telegraphed it enough. Yeah. So we'll see in a year and a half what happens.
Well, the writer's strike is happening, so we'll
see in 5 years what happens. Go writers, by the way.
Pay them their money.
All right. So, guys, this has been a great show. Great talking about Star Wars. That was Christopher Walken, who auditioned for Han Solo back in 1975.
Oh, boy.
You can check out Saturday Night Live to watch the tape.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Adam. So let's take a quick break. We'll be back with Coming Soon and the end of the show right after this.
There's more of the scope dead ahead.
Under the scope.
Here we are, Adam. Under
I like
the
to
scope.
imagine Tony saying, "There's more of the scope."
Yeah, you're still doing this. Coming soon. Well, with the writer's strike, Adam, there's probably not a lot of stuff out there, right? It's impacted that quickly.
What's today? Is today the 15th-ish of May?
Yes.
Okay. And when we talk next, it's going to be the 29th-ish of May?
Yes. So you've got 2 weeks.
Yep. All right.
Wait, I thought we were doing...
Are we flip-flopping?
I thought we were doing a week at a time.
A week at a time?
I think let's do every other week.
All right.
Okay. So we'll talk about things that are coming up between the 14th and the 27th-ish. Movies. White Men Can't Jump comes out this week on Hulu. And I don't know if it's Lance Radix's last movie, but it is one of Lance Radix's last
That was a surprise when that happened.
We could have talked about that.
Because he was literally like on the Love or Leave It podcast like 2 weeks beforehand. I'm like, oh, this guy's great.
It's a big loss. Big effing loss. That guy was a master.
Yeah. Dude was, like one of the main characters in Destiny, and dude played a lot of Destiny.
He actually played the game.
Yeah.
He played it.
Yeah.
He loved it.
Yeah. I always think that's cool. I don't know why. Let's see. The real movie coming out this week is Fast 10. I don't know what we're calling it.
And you love those movies, so you're going to see it.
I do. I don't know what's going to happen this time. Justin Lin left the movie like midway through shooting it or something. That's a bad sign. But Brie Larson is in this. She's got to be teaming up with Charlize Theron, right? It's like pretty ladies that are going to try to kill Vin Diesel.
Yeah. I hope they succeed.
Let's hope. So that's kind of it. If we're going to just, because next week there's kind of 26. The Little Mermaid comes out. The divisive. Who knew?
Very divisive. Jared's been angry about
Mermaid.
it for a couple of years now.
I know. It's embarrassing.
It's not even my, I don't care. I don't get why people are mad, and I also don't care about.
You got to be mad about something.
Yeah.
Well, I know why they're mad.
Because people are racist, Jared.
Yeah, I know.
And they don't want to admit it. That's the reason.
Well, some of them do want to admit it, and
they
have blue check marks on Twitter.
Don't we?
Yeah. Let's see. I was just going to say there's some TV shows premiering. Rainn Wilson has a show. Rainn Wilson and the Geography of Bliss on Peacock.
Okay.
The Gremlins show comes out on HBO Max. The 20th.
You mean Max?
I think it's just Max.
Yeah, sorry.
It'll be at this point. It'll be just Max.
It's another thing we could talk about
in a couple weeks. So ignore that. So many albums by people I have never heard of before. But Goldfrapp is no longer, because Alison Goldfrapp is doing her own thing. So the Jonas Brothers have an album coming out. Moby.
Moby's still kicking, huh?
Yeah.
Still bothering to get the
Dave Matthews Band. So, just kind of date ourselves here. Kesha, Sophia Stevens. We all
My
know
daughter
these
would be
people.
like, "Who are you talking about right now?"
Exactly. All right, and video games. We play those sometimes, right?
Oh, this is a big one.
There was a time, yeah.
All right. So if this is
Playing so
is
much
Monday,
Call
then
of Duty.
on last Friday, the new Zelda game came out. Tears of the Kingdom.
Are you
People very
buy
excited
that game?
about this game.
Gonna buy that game?
I did not like the last one. I thought it was fine. I did not like it. People view it as the best video game of all time.
It's not quite that good, but it was exceptional. It really was
that?
good. I said I don't think it was the best video game of all time, but it was an exceptionally good game, in my opinion.
Shane has gone full robot mode.
Shane has gone full robot. Okay, good. It's not just me.
Do I sound bad again?
Your video is frozen and your sound is all scrambled.
Okay, I'll let you guys talk.
Okay, we'll talk.
Yeah.
Let's see. What other games? Not much else comes out because people are scared to compete against that game for good reason. But Lego 2K Drive does come out.
What on earth is that?
Yeah, that is a Lego kart racing game.
Oh, okay.
So it's coming out for everything. So check it out. That's all I got. Shane, you're moving again, so maybe this is a good sign.
All right, how do I sound now?
Great.
Yeah.
Dulcet
perfect.
tones.
Fantastic. Adam, great
Stop
job.
downloading torrents.
I know. I'm a multitasker. You know that. Adam, fantastic job. You covered everything. I can't wait for Zelda, but both Jared and I have said we're going to wait to buy because we have so many other games to play first. So.
I will wait a long time because I have not even played the first one yet.
Yeah, well, I mean,
you're for years.
You're a little behind the times. Anyway,
I gave it a try several times. That was for whatever reason, it was like, I'm going on a plane. I'm going to bring my Switch. And I'm going to play Zelda.
I'll tell you what.
This would be my vacation game. And then I would play it on the plane. And then I would get back from my trip and I would promptly never touch it again. And then I would go on another trip and be like, well, maybe I'll try Zelda again. I'd start over because I'd forgotten how to play the game. Anyway, you have a theory as to why. So you tell me.
Weapon degradation. You play that game and you're like, I don't want my weapons to break. And then they do, and you're like, this is dumb. Next game.
There's a trick in that, and that is you've got to get his shield and sword, like the master shield and sword, and then those things don't break down.
Cool. The thing that you get at the end of the game.
Under the scope.
There we go.
I'm moving it along.
Nice. At the end of the game, that's when the game gets good.
Nice. All right, Jared, finish it up.
Have you played that game to 100% Shane, like some people do?
And probably not 100%, but I accomplished many, many things in there. Yes.
Who's got the time?
I accomplished many things.
Time. Well, it's the end of the program. It's the part of the program where we solicit your comments and you come through. The mailbag is bursting. I don't have an air horn. I really wanted to.
You got to give a soundboard there. You could get it right now.
I need to update it. But anything we might have gotten is super stale because it's been like 6 months. So we're just going to move on and say, hey, if you'd like to email us, comments@thescopeshow.com. Did we get that fixed? We might have. Call a voicemail line, 612-21-SCOPE. That is 612-217-2673. Yeah, we got ourselves a party. And we're on the social medias. We have a Facebook page. We have a Twitter account. Sure. It says here a Tumblr, but it's missing an E. That's kind of weird. We're also on YouTube. We record these videos, and that reminds me, there is a brand new YouTube podcast feature that I'm going to try out now with this new release. I keep getting emails from YouTube to the Scope account saying, hey, there's these new things you should try. So I'm going to give them a go. And if you want to see what happens when I give them a go, head on over to our YouTube channel. That link is youtube.com/ I think it's @thescopeshow now. I think that's their new handle format. Whatever. That link is also at our website @thescopeshow.com. And if you want to support the show, you want to keep it going, you want to supply me with oxygen tanks to keep me breathing when I go on these long rambling things, head on over to Patreon. Become a patron. Talked about it earlier. Patreon.com/thescopeshow. That's where all the cool people hang out. I think that's what they do on Patreon, right? They hang out. People hang out.
It's a big hangout place.
Yeah, it's a big hangout place. And if you're shopping at Amazon, there is a link, thescopeshow.com/Amazon. That's our affiliate link. You can click on that. Magical things happen, doesn't cost you anything, and it makes you feel good in your pants. Shane, back to you.
Fantastic, Jared. You did a great job. You're winded, but you're still alive.
I keep drinking liquids like I'm not going to drink just a ton of
drinking
liquids in the next hour.
We've got big liquid action coming up here soon.
But I'm parched.
It's nice to be back. It's good to see you guys. So let's just wrap this thing up. Hit that button, Jared. So for Jared and Adam, I'm Shane. Thanks for listening. More show coming in 2 weeks. Till then, bye for now.
Ladies and gentlemen, we find ourselves once again at the end. I hope you've enjoyed our time together. I know I have. Fear not, Scope faithful. Days shall pass as if they were but a moment. And Jared, Adam, and Shane will return with another thrilling episode. Until then, send your comments to comments@thescopeshow.com or leave a voicemail message by dialing
612-21-SCOPE. That's 612-217-2673.
Thanks for listening, faithful fans. This is Tony Partington saying Belle Nuit. Tune in next time to another terrific edition of The Scope.